Hey, what's up everybody? This is Mike Riley, and in today's video, I'm gonna talk about resisting arrest, interfering with an officer, and assault on an officer. This category of crimes is different than others in that it involves police officers as not only witnesses, but as the victims of the crime. In today's video, you can expect to learn what it means to resist or interfere, whether you have a right to resist an unlawful arrest, and how the use of body-worn cameras by police is changing the landscape with respect to these crimes. So let's start by talking about what it means to resist or interfere. Classic examples of this are running from the police, refusing to be cuffed, giving a fake name, giving a fake ID, lying to the police, or getting involved in an investigation and interfering with a police officer in his or her official capacity. Now, the laws on interfering and resisting are going to vary from state to state, so I would encourage you to look into the laws of your own particular state. Now, where I practice interfering or resisting with police is a misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to 1 year in jail. Now, assault on an officer is a different situation. Assault on an officer is when you're accused of hitting a police officer, spitting on a police officer, hurting them in some way. Now, that is not a misdemeanor where I practice. That is a 10-year felony, and it's very serious. Sometimes we see interfering cases that escalate to an assault on an officer, and those cases are much more difficult to defend. All cases that involve police officers as witnesses are more difficult to defend than cases that don't involve police officers as witnesses. And that's because the police are much more likely to come to court and testify against your client. So let's say I have a plain old assault case that doesn't involve the police. My client is accused of punching somebody in the face on the street. Now, we could push that case to trial, and if the prosecutors can't find the victim or the victim refuses to come to court, the government is going to have a difficult time proving this case without that witness. How else are they going to prove that the assault happened? If there's no other witnesses, I might be able to get that case dismissed. Now, let's look at a case that involves a police officer as a victim. Police officers are integral parts of the criminal justice system. They're not afraid to come to court. It's part of their job. They get paid to come to court. So if you have an assault on an officer case, you can bet that that police officer is going to come to court, going to testify against your client. And that makes these cases much harder to defend. It's also worth noting that police officers are trained to testify. They know how to do it, and they tend to come across as more credible than your average witness. So I am often asked, do you have a right to resist an unlawful arrest? If the police try and arrest you for something that is completely bogus, if it's patently false, you must have a right to resist that, right? Well, you don't. The answer is no. You have no right to resist an arrest, even an unlawful arrest. So let's say a police officer sees me walking down the street and thinks, oh, it's that Mike Riley. I can't stand that guy. And he comes up to arrest me. I have no right to resist that arrest. So the right way to handle it is to just let the cop arrest me, go to court and say, this police officer arrested me because he doesn't like me. There was no crime committed. There's no basis for it. In that situation, I think a court is very likely to dismiss those charges. There's no allegation of a crime. There wasn't probable cause to believe that a crime was committed. And because I didn't resist, there's no additional charge. So let's say in that same scenario, the police officer comes up to arrest me and I start resisting. Let's say I tense up, I give the police officer a hard time, I refuse to be cuffed, and I'm saying this is an unlawful arrest, this is an illegal arrest, I am not submitting to this. I'm going to have a problem in court now, because even though the underlying stop was bad, that the police officer had no reason to arrest me, I am not entitled to resist that. Now, in that situation, I think a good lawyer would go to court and be like, what was he supposed to do? This cop was bonkers. This police officer should not have a badge. He's arresting people because he doesn't like them. You might be able to persuade a prosecutor in this case to just throw the thing out, because at trial, it's going to be ugly for the police officer, right? Now, you might be asking, well, what about a situation where the police officer is about to use force, do great bodily harm, maybe kill me? Do I have a right to resist in that situation? Let's go back to the example I gave. I'm walking down the street, police officer sees me, wants to give me a hard time because this police officer doesn't like me. He comes up to arrest me and says, not only am I going to arrest you, I'm going to break your leg because I can't stand you, Mike. In that situation, the police officer is no longer acting in his or her official capacity when he or she is trying to break my leg. Okay, in that situation, self-defense applies. I would argue that I have a right to defend myself from what I reasonably believe to be the imminent use of physical force, and I can fight back. That does not mean it's going to be easy in court. So when I go to court, it's going to be my word against the police officer's word. Courts have a tendency to believe police officers. So if I use force to defend myself against a police officer, that police officer still might charge me, bring me to court, and I might have an uphill battle trying to unwind this thing in the courthouse. And this is where body-worn cameras come in. Recently, many states have mandated that police officers wear body-worn cameras when they're on the job, when they're on duty. These cameras have been game changers. Now, in this situation where the police officer comes up to me and says, I'm gonna arrest you because I don't like you, this should be recorded on body camera. Right? And when I go to court, my lawyer should be able to take this thing apart, break it down, and get the case thrown out because everything is documented. In the same situation, if the police officer is about to use force against me, it should be on body-worn camera, and we could pick this apart in court. It's no longer my word against the police officer's word. So yes, the next question is, well, what if the police officers are not wearing their body cameras? These issues are coming up every day. I see them in court routinely. Police officers who forget to turn their body camera on, turn them off conveniently, aren't wearing them, were wearing them, and then deleted the footage. As the use of body-worn camera technology becomes widespread, these new issues are popping up. I think you can argue in that situation that if there's a law that requires the police officer to wear a body-worn camera, and this particular officer opted themselves out of the law, there needs to be consequences in court. I think you can argue that the case should be thrown out. I think you can argue that the police officer should not be allowed to testify, that that officer's testimony should be precluded because they operated in violation of a body cam law, or at the very least at trial, there should be an instruction given to the jury to say something along the lines of, hey, officer so-and-so was supposed to wear a body camera and didn't wear a body camera. You might want to scrutinize that officer's testimony a little more carefully than another witness. These issues are novel, they're coming up every day, and it's exciting to see where they're going to go and what courts are going to do about them. So what do you think? Do you think you should have a right to resist an unlawful arrest? Do you understand the public policy behind the idea that you're almost never allowed to resist an arrest, even an unlawful arrest? What do you think about body-worn cameras? Do you think that this technology is going to help the police bring more transparency to court, or is it going to make prosecutors' jobs more difficult in proving cases when everything is on film? I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. I appreciate all the support, and thank you so much for watching.